Brian, the teams that have stood out most in the ACC so far, Miami, Florida State, who they were off this past weekend, but they dominated Alabama week 1. Like you said, they did what you're supposed to do against an FCS opponent in East Texas A&M. Then they had their bye week. But Georgia Tech, I also need to give them credit. They just pulled off the home victory against Clemson. But are Miami and Florida State, are they the best teams in the conference right now? And how could Georgia Tech maybe spoil the party for one of them?
It's a really interesting take because, number one, neither one of us, because we had private and on-air conversations about Florida State. We're like, they'll go to a bowl, but that's about it this year. So they're shocking. But Georgia Tech is like punching people in the mouth. They ran over Clemson.
Yeah.
And even their defense, they don't recruit the kind of kids that FSU and Miami do on defense. Not even remotely. They have hit on the portal, kind of like Florida State did in 23. Like they got a bunch of guys. I'm like, who is this? These guys have been at 2 and 3 schools. Their defense is solid. When you add in Haynes King, who's this year's version of Riley Leonard, he stays healthy. 10-2, I think, is their floor. I still think they'll lose to Georgia. I think they'll lose one ACC game, maybe. Their schedule, and I mean, this is brutal. Like, and I know it's not them picking it out, so they didn't spot check this with a 5th-year senior quarterback. But like they got NC State. And they've got Duke. They're 2 good teams.
Yeah.
But who else do they play? Because they don't play the Noles. They don't play the Canes.
No.
The ACC is obviously not a great league. Who are they playing that they're going to lose to? Georgia game doesn't matter because it's not a conference game.
Right.
They play at Georgia or at Duke October 18th, and November 1st they play at NC State. Boston College.
And Duke doesn't look as good as and Duke, I don't think is as good as I thought they might be. And they just lost to Tulane, and then they're the butt of every joke because they paid all this money to take Darian Mensah from Tulane, and then they lose to Tulane. So,
yeah, that's not a good look, by the way.
No,
but
no,
I mean, is it out of the question they could go into the Georgia game undefeated? No.
Yeah.
Nobody saw that coming. So if, let's say, Miami beats Florida State might have 1 loss in the league and not make it to the ACC title game.
And the flip side is also true. Florida State beats Miami, and
Right. Yeah. Because Miami, they don't play Clemson, correct?
No, they don't.
Florida State still has to go to Clemson. So this game is more important to the Noles than it is to Canes. I know Clemson's not as good as normal, but playing in Death Valley is not friendly.
No.
You got to be, that's a 50-50 kind of deal. Maybe Cade Klubnik comes out of his funk. I don't know. But Miami's got the easier path, but Georgia Tech has the easiest. If Florida State loses this game, their chances of making the ACC title game are not that great, which is wild because they could still end up ranked in the top 5 to 7 and not make the ACC title game. That's just crazy.
Wow. I mean, so I can say from a Miami point of view, and I talk to Miami fans all day, every day. I know that obviously getting the win against Notre Dame to start the season, taking care of business since then, it's raised the expectations for a lot of Miami fans who are thinking, okay, we got to finally win the ACC, definitely be a playoff team. Like all of that has been solidified by Miami's start. Tell me the pulse of the Florida State fan and again, I know you're obviously always going to have a few fans that no matter how bad you were last year, they're like, we're going to go 13-0 again. And we're going to get into the playoffs. But you had other people who were on the fence that may now be coming around to that idea. Like, what do you think now the Florida State fan pulse is on how far that program should go this year?
I think it actually changed during the East Texas A&M game for the same reason I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
They were so focused and they just came out and they didn't play with their food. They ate and they left, okay? You know what I mean? They paid their tab and they were out of there. Yeah. That's the kind of attitude that Bowden's teams. Remember those teams where they played in Duke or away? It was 56-7 in the middle of the third quarter. You know what I mean? Like it was that.
Sure.
The attitude is back like that. So now everybody's like 10 wins is kind of like bare minimum. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I don't disagree. Even if they lose to Miami, Clemson's the only other team with remotely the same talent level and a coach. No offense to Florida. They got some more talent, but that last game in Gainesville, if Billy's out, that could be the worst loss in UF. Ooh. I mean, it could be worse than the Miami game last year because how many of those kids are going to be bought in? So their schedule sets up pretty well, minus the Clemson game gives me pause because I still don't know what's going to happen with them. They got NC State the week before UF, but they won't be looking past it now because NC State's better than UF, which is, by the way, that should never be the case. But
Never.
but it is. So yeah, UF's the easiest job, even in the state of Florida. It's got the SEC moniker, and Billy screwed that up. But the bottom line, Florida State, I think, should be 10-2 or better with the win over Alabama, et cetera, and still might not make the ACC title game.